July's sun is baking the path, the lavender is purple from knee to tip, and the bees are moving through it like sparks. You stand there with secateurs in your hand, looking at all that bloom, all that wildness, and it feels obvious. Tidy it now. But that is the trap. Lavender looks strongest in July, yet one hard cut into the wrong wood can leave dead gaps that never fill again. Pretty today, hollow next summer. The first thing to understand is that lavender does not fail because it is weak. It fails because we mistake its strongest looking moment for permission. Old Amos would tell you lavender is not asking for rescue in July. It is asking to be read. The flowers, the stems, the gray leaves, the dry soil at the crown. Each one is giving you a different instruction. So here's the July care map. You will learn what not to cut, when pruning actually belongs, how much to remove, where the blade must never go, how to take cuttings, and how to water without drowning the roots. Because peak bloom is not peak pruning time. July is not the month to force lavender into more growth. It is the month to protect next year's shape while the plant is still showing you where the living wood is. And the first part of that system begins with the hardest advice for a tidy gardener to hear. Put the secateurs down. A blooming lavender stem is not just decoration. It is the plant's working system for July. Those long purple wands are carrying flowers for pollinators, leaves for making food, and soft green growth that tells you where the plant is still alive and flexible. Cut all of that back hard in midsummer, and you are not tidying. You are taking away the engine while it is running. That is why old Amos would never shear a lavender bush into a tight gray ball while it is in full flower. A light harvest of a few stems is one thing, a severe haircut is another. The bad cut goes deep, below the leafy growth, into old woody sections that may not break again. Then the plant sits in July heat with fewer leaves, fewer flowers, and less strength to refill the gaps. By next year, you often see the result: bare legs, hollow middle, growth only at the tips. The good gardener waits, watches the bloom fade, lets the plant finish its work before shaping it. But leaving the plant alone forever is not the answer either, because lavender does need pruning, just not the brutal kind people often give it. So here's the job. When the flowers have gone dull and the bees have mostly moved on, do not scalp the lavender, shape it. Old Amos would take the spent flower stems first, then trim the soft, leafy growth just enough to bring the plant back into a rounded mound. A safe measure is up to 1/3 of the plant's height. Not 1/2, not down to the brown wood, 1/3, and only where there is still green life below the cut. That modest cut does 3 things. It stops the plant from stretching open, it pushes fresh side growth before the season cools, and it keeps the center from becoming a bundle of bare sticks. The cruel cut looks tidy for a week, then the trouble begins. Too much green removed at once means fewer leaves making food, fewer buds forming, and less strength going into the crown before winter. Lavender is not asking for mercy because it is weak. It is asking for timing because it is built that way. Yet even a perfectly timed 1/3 cut can ruin the plant if the blades drop just a little too low. The brown base of a lavender plant is not a hidden reserve. It is the old framework. That is the part most gardeners misunderstand. When you look closely in July, you will see 2 different plants living in one shape. Up top, there are soft stems, gray-green leaves, and bendy tips that still have sap moving through them. Down below, there are hard brown stems with no leaves, no softness, and no promise you can count on. Old Amos would pinch a stem before cutting. If it bent like a twig with life in it, he would shape above it. If it felt dry, hard, and bare, he left it alone. Lavender is not like a rose. It does not reliably break fresh shoots from old, naked wood. Cut into that bare framework, and the plant may simply seal the wound and stop. That is how a perfect July mound becomes a shrub with holes you can see through by next summer. So use the visual test. Green leaves below the blade means safe. Bare brown wood below the blade means stop. Shape the living coat, not the skeleton underneath. Restraint is the whole secret here. So if July is too early for a hard prune and old wood is off limits, there is still one quiet July job that can save the whole lavender patch. The quiet job is cuttings, not handfuls hacked from the sides. not a tray filled after you have skinned the shrub bare. Just a few straight, healthy shoots that have not flowered. In July, these shoots are in the sweet middle. The tip is still green and lively. The base is just beginning to firm. Old Amos would call that a stem with enough youth to root and enough backbone to survive. Look low on the plant inside the soft outer growth. Choose stems with no bloom spike, no yellowing, no weak twist. Cut short pieces about a hand's width long. Strip the lower leaves with your fingers, leaving a little gray-green tuft at the top. Then tuck them around the edge of a small pot filled with gritty, free-draining compost. Sand, grit, and compost. Light, open, never sour. Water once to settle them, then keep them barely moist in bright shade. That is the difference between multiplying lavender and punishing it. A cutting takes one small future plant. A hard July strip takes next year's shape, next year's flowers, and sometimes the whole shrub. This is how you keep young lavender coming on before the old plants turn woody, tired, or winter damaged. But cuttings will only root well, and mature lavender will only survive July if the next mistake is fixed before anyone reaches for the watering can. Before you decide how much water lavender needs, look where that water goes. Tip the pot slightly. Check the holes. Lift the inner nursery pot out of the pretty outer container. If there is a cold puddle sitting at the bottom, the plant has not been thirsty. It has been standing in a bath. Lavender will forgive a short dry spell in July. It will not forgive stale, wet roots. Those roots are built for air as much as moisture. In heavy compost, clay soil, blocked drainage holes, or a saucer that never gets emptied, the spaces between the particles fill with water. Air disappears. Fine roots turn brown. Then the top starts lying to you. It wilts. And that is where many good gardeners make the fatal mistake. They see drooping stems and dry-looking gray leaves, so they water again. The plant looks thirsty, but the roots are already drowning. Old Amos would fix the bottom before touching the top. Raise pots on feet. Clear every drainage hole. Empty saucers after watering. Use a gritty mix that falls apart in your hand, not a dark sponge that stays sour for days. Then water deeply, once, only when the medium has dried properly. Let it run through, let it leave, and once you see pruning and watering together, the real villain in July lavender care becomes obvious. That is the real villain, not the heat, not the silver leaves, not even the brown bits in the middle. Panic. You see a lavender plant in July with flowers leaning sideways, a few bare twigs showing underneath, and compost pulling away from the edge of the pot. So the hand reaches for something: secateurs, hosepipe, feed, anything that makes it look fixed by tea time. But lavender is not asking to be made perfect in July. It is asking not to be bullied. Cut too hard and you remove the green growth it needs to recover. Cut too low into old wood and some stems never wake again. Water too often and the roots stop breathing just when the plant should be hardening itself for next year. Old Amos would say, steady your hand before you touch the plant. July care is not neglect, it is choosing the few jobs that protect the crown, the roots, and next summer's flowers. So the answer to the July lavender mystery is not one magic product, it is a simple order of operations. Here is the order. Do not hard prune lavender while it is in full bloom. When flowering finishes, trim lightly, taking no more than 1/3. Keep every cut above green growth. Leave the old brown wood alone. If you want new plants, take a few short, non-flowering cuttings from healthy tips. Then look at the roots world. A pot must drain fast. Ground soil must not sit wet. Water only when the plant has actually dried. That is why July lavender turns woody and gappy by next summer. Not because it bloomed too well, because it was cut too low, soaked too often, or rushed at the wrong moment. Today, inspect one plant. Find the green cutting zone, the old wood line, and the drainage. Comment below. Is your lavender in the ground, in a pot, or indoors? And is it blooming, woody, or struggling? Thank you for watching. Steady hands save lavender.